First contact. The crystalline caves of Proxima VI sparkled under Sarah Chen's headlamp, casting rainbow fractals across the rough-hewn walls. As head of salvage engineering for the Oasis mining colony, she'd explored countless cave systems across this desolate world, but something about today's readings was different. Her scanner's quantum signature detector had gone haywire 3 hours ago, leading her deeper into the planet's labyrinthine underground network than she'd ever ventured before. "Control, I'm picking up some serious anomalies down here," Sarah reported, adjusting her environment suit's temperature controls. "The energy signature is unlike anything in our database. Definitely not natural formation." "Copy that, Chen," came the crackling response. "You're getting pretty deep. Maybe time to head back." Sarah smiled, running her gloved hand along a particularly smooth section of crystal. "Just a little further. Whatever's causing these readings, it's big. Could be exactly what we need to keep the colony running." The Oasis mining colony had seen better days. What had started as a promising operation 15 years ago had slowly dwindled as the easily accessible mineral veins were exhausted. Now, at 32, Sarah spent more time salvaging and repurposing old equipment than actually mining. Every scrap of technology counted. The tunnel widened suddenly, opening into a vast chamber that her headlamp couldn't fully illuminate. Sarah activated her suit's auxiliary floods, and her breath caught in her throat. The chamber wasn't natural. It was manufactured. Perfectly hexagonal in shape, its walls were lined with the same crystals found throughout the cave system, but these were clearly arranged with purpose. And in the center, half buried in crystalline growth, sat something impossible. "Control, are you seeing this?" Sarah activated her suit's video feed, approaching the massive object carefully. It was roughly cylindrical, about 20 meters long and 5 meters in diameter. Despite being covered in crystal formations, its metallic surface showed no signs of corrosion or age. Geometric patterns were etched into its hull, reminiscent of circuit boards but far more complex. "Holy shit," Control breathed. "What is that thing?" "If I had to guess," Sarah ran her scanner over the object's surface. "Some kind of vehicle. Military, based on these configurations, and definitely not human-made." The scanner's readings were off the charts. The object wasn't just preserved, it was in perfect condition, its power systems merely dormant. As Sarah circled it, she noticed what appeared to be a cockpit or control center, its crystalline canopy refracting her lights in mesmerizing patterns. "Chen, we should call this in. Get a full research team down there." Sarah barely heard them. She'd noticed something else. The geometric patterns were starting to glow, ever so faintly, in response to her proximity. Her scanner confirmed what she suspected. The vehicle was reacting to her presence. "There's something else," she said, reaching out toward a section of the hull that seemed to pulse with a soft blue light. "It's active, not just preserved, but—" Her gloved hand made contact with the hull. Instantly, the geometric patterns blazed to life, lines of energy coursing across the vehicle's surface like digital lightning. The crystalline growths began to crack and fall away as the vehicle hummed with awakening power. Sarah stumbled back, but not in fear. In her 15 years of salvage work, she'd developed an almost supernatural intuition for machinery, and everything about this vehicle, despite its alien origin, felt right. A seam appeared in the hull, right where she'd touched it. As the opening arised wider, Sarah could see into the control center. It was surprisingly human in scale, with what was clearly a pilot's seat surrounded by dormant holographic interfaces. "Control, I'm going in." "Chen, negative. Wait for backup." But Sarah was already climbing through the opening. The interior was pristine, as if it had been sealed moments ago, rather than what must have been millennia. As she settled into the pilot's seat, the holographic interfaces sparkled to life around her. Symbols and diagrams she couldn't begin to understand filled the air. And then she felt it, a presence, vast and ancient, brushing against her mind. "Welcome, Pilot Chen. It communicated, not in words, but in concepts and emotions. You are the first to answer our call in 47,000 cycles. The preservation protocol has succeeded. Sarah's heart raced. What are you? I am a Guardian-class war sentinel, created by the preservers to protect emerging civilizations from the Great Darkness. Your species has been watched, evaluated, and now selected. The enemy approaches once again, and humanity's greatest trial lies ahead. The holographic displays shifted, showing star maps and tactical data. Sarah saw massive fleets moving through space, mechanical horrors that defied description, and worlds burning. But you have found me, the War Sentinel continued. And together, we may yet prevent history from repeating itself. Sarah's hands gripped the control interfaces, which responded to her touch as if they'd been designed for her. Control, she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what was happening. You're going to want to clear the tunnel system. Things are about to get interesting. The War Sentinel system's fully activated, its ancient power core humming to life. As crystal fragments continued to fall away from its hull, Sarah felt a surge of excitement and purpose. She didn't understand everything that was happening, but she knew one thing for certain. Life on Proxima VI was about to change forever. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, humanity's greatest challenge was approaching. Awakening. The Oasis Mining Colony's emergency council chamber had never been so crowded. 3 days after Sarah's discovery, representatives from every department sat around the worn conference table, their faces illuminated by holographic projections of the War Sentinel's data feeds. Sarah stood at the head of the table, still wearing her work coveralls, dark circles under her eyes betraying how little she'd slept. The neural interface is unlike anything we've ever encountered, she explained, gesturing to the technical readouts floating above the table. It's not just a control system, it's a true symbiosis. The War Sentinel doesn't just accept commands. It learns, adapts, and evolves based on its pilot's thoughts and instincts. Colony Director Hayes leaned forward, his weathered face creased with concern. And you're certain it's safe? We're talking about connecting human minds to alien technology that's older than our entire civilization. Sarah nodded. The Sentinel's primary directive is preservation, not just of itself, but of all developing species. It's been waiting for a race capable of reaching the next stage of evolution. Apparently, we qualify. But why us? Asked Dr. Zhang, the colony's chief scientist. Why here, on some backwater mining colony? Sarah activated another hologram, showing a map of the galaxy with pulsing red indicators spreading like a virus across the stars. Because we're first in their path, the harvesters are coming. The room fell silent as the council members watched the simulation play out. The red indicators consumed system after system, leaving dead worlds in their wake. The Sentinel had shown Sarah countless records of their previous attacks, mechanical swarms that stripped planets bare of resources and organic matter alike, using them to fuel their endless expansion. The preservers fought them before, Sarah continued. They created the War Sentinels as a last resort, hiding them on worlds that showed potential for developing advanced civilizations. The Sentinels were meant to be found when they were needed most. And you think that time is now? Hayes asked. Sarah's response was interrupted by an alarm from her neural link with the Sentinel. Her eyes unfocused briefly as she processed the incoming data. They're closer than we thought. A scout ship just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of our system. The council erupted in panic, but Sarah remained calm. Over the past 3 days, she'd spent every waking moment connected to the Sentinel, learning its systems, understanding its capabilities. What had initially felt alien now seemed as natural as breathing. I need authorization to launch, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. The Sentinel and I can intercept them before they report our position back to the main fleet. Hayes studied her for a long moment. You're our head of salvage, Sarah, not a fighter pilot. Sarah smiled. I'm something new now. The Sentinel chose me for a reason. Its combat systems are unprecedented, but they need human creativity and intuition to reach their full potential. Together, we're more than the sum of our parts. The emergency lights suddenly flashed red. Multiple contacts detected, the colony's AI announced. 3 harvester vessels on approach. Energy signatures match known scout configurations. Hayes stood. How long do we have? 20 minutes until they're in scanning range of the colony. Sarah replied, already moving toward the door. If they spot us, they'll call in the main fleet. We'll be overrun in days. And you think you can stop them? Sarah paused at the doorway, her expression determined. I think humanity has been preparing for this moment our entire history. Every war, every conflict, every struggle for survival. It's all led to this. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We're fighting for every world in their path. She didn't wait for a response, sprinting through the colony's corridors toward the massive shaft that now led to the War Sentinel's chamber. The alien vessel had already begun powering up, responding to her thoughts through their neural link. As she approached, its crystalline canopy became transparent, revealing the cockpit that had become more familiar to her than her own quarters. They are armed with quantum disruptors and phase shields, the Sentinel communicated as Sarah settled into the pilot's seat. Previous tactical data suggests they will attempt to flank and overwhelm. Then we'll show them something they've never seen before, Sarah replied, both aloud and through the neural link. The holographic controls sparkled to life around her, but she barely needed them now. The Sentinel responded to her intentions as much as her actions. The massive war machine lifted off the ground, its anti-gravity systems humming with power. Crystalline fragments fell from its hull as decades of accumulation shed away, revealing the true beauty of its design. The geometric patterns that covered its surface now pulsed with energy, each line and curve serving both aesthetic and tactical purposes. As they ascended through the shaft toward the surface, Sarah felt a surge of excitement rather than fear. The Sentinel's combat databases were merging with her human instincts, creating something entirely new. She could feel the alien eye's surprise and satisfaction at how quickly she'd adapted to its systems. Your species possesses remarkable neural plasticity, it observed. The preservers chose well. The harvesters think they're the ultimate evolution of machine intelligence, Sarah said, watching as the first hints of stars became visible above. But they forgot something important about evolution. What is that, Pilot Chen? The War Sentinel burst from the surface of Proxima VI, its weapon systems coming fully online as they detected the approaching harvester scouts. Sarah's mind merged even deeper with the ancient machine, feeling its power become her own. Sometimes the best path forward isn't the obvious one. They chose to eliminate organic life. We'll show them the power of combining it with machine intelligence instead. The harvester scouts detected them, changing course to intercept. Their angular, predatory forms were exactly as the Sentinel's records had shown, emotionless, efficient, and utterly unprepared for what they were about to face. Sarah smiled as she and the Sentinel moved as one, their merged consciousness already calculating attack vectors that neither human nor machine could have conceived alone. The real test was about to begin. Rising storm. The void between Proxima VI and its moons became a battlefield of light and shadow. The 3 harvester scouts moved with perfect mechanical precision, their quantum disruptors painting deadly patterns across space. But Sarah and the War Sentinel danced through their firing solutions like water through stone, each movement flowing naturally into the next. Their tactical algorithms are adapting. The Sentinel communicated through their neural link, but they cannot predict what they do not understand. Sarah grinned as she merged their consciousness deeper, pushing the ancient war machine beyond its original specifications. The geometric patterns along its hull pulsed with increasingly complex energy signatures, confounding the harvester's targeting systems. Let's show them something new, Sarah thought, and the Sentinel responded instantly to her intention. The war machine's crystalline structure began to shift, its form becoming more fluid and organic while maintaining its technological precision. Energy coursed through reconfigured weapon systems in ways the preservers had never imagined, but that Sarah's human creativity had somehow unlocked. The first Harvester Scout didn't even have time to register the change in its target before a lance of concentrated quantum energy pierced its supposedly impenetrable shields. The blast wasn't just powerful. It was adaptive, changing frequency and phase in patterns that mirrored organic neural networks rather than mechanical logic. Remarkable, the Sentinel observed as the enemy vessel split apart in a silent explosion. Your species' talent for improvisation exceeds all projected parameters. The remaining Harvester Scouts immediately shifted tactics, their hive mind processing this new threat. They split apart, attempting to surround the War Sentinel while transmitting data back to their fleet. But Sarah had anticipated this. "They think like machines," she said both to herself and the Sentinel. Perfect optimization, perfect efficiency. But sometimes the best move isn't the most efficient one. She directed their combined consciousness into the War Sentinel's propulsion systems, pushing them to their limits. Instead of evading, they charged directly at one of the scouts, their quantum wake disrupting its communication arrays. The Harvester vessel attempted to calculate an optimal response, but by the time its processors had evaluated all variables, Sarah had already done something it considered tactically illogical. The War Sentinel's crystalline structure resonated at precisely the frequency of the Scouts' shields, not to destroy them, but to harmonize with them. For a fraction of a second, both vessels' energy fields merge. In that moment, Sarah and the Sentinel executed their real attack. A pulse of concentrated data, part machine code, part human consciousness, surged through the temporary connection. The Harvester Scout systems crashed as they tried to process information that followed neither pure machine logic nor organic patterns, but some impossible combination of both. The third scout immediately began to retreat, recognizing a threat it couldn't quantify. But Sarah and the Sentinel were already moving. The geometric patterns across their hull reconfigured once more, transforming the entire vessel into something like a quantum lens. Space itself seemed to bend as they focused the combined energy of their weapons through this newfound configuration. The retreating Harvester Scout disappeared in a burst of light that briefly outshone Proxima Vii's sun. In the silence that followed, Sarah took a moment to process what they'd accomplished. Through their neural link, she could feel the Sentinel analyzing the battle data with what could only be described as excitement. "This exceeds all projected outcomes," it communicated. "The preservers designed us to be piloted, but not to evolve. Your species does not simply use technology, you transform it." Sarah watched the debris of the Harvester Scouts drift against the backdrop of stars. "They'll send more," she said. "A lot more." "Yes, the main fleet will alter course once they lose contact with these scouts. We estimate 3 standard months before they arrive in force. Then we have work to do." Sarah turned their vessel back toward the colony, her mind already racing with possibilities. "We need to find more Sentinels. There must be others hidden on nearby worlds. And we need to start training pilots. You believe others of your species can achieve this level of integration. I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible." Sarah replied, "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our intelligence. It's our ability to adapt, to take existing systems and reimagine them in ways their creators never considered." As they descended back through Proxima Vii's atmosphere, Sarah could see the entire colony had gathered to watch their return. News of the battle would spread quickly through the human settlements in this sector. And with it, hope. The Harvesters believed themselves to be the perfect fusion of organic and mechanical evolution, the Sentinel observed, but they achieved this by eliminating what they saw as organic weakness. "That's where they went wrong," Sarah said as they landed among the cheering colonists. "They forgot that those so-called weaknesses, emotion, intuition, creativity, are actually humanity's greatest strengths. And now, together, we're going to prove it." The War Sentinel's crystalline canopy became transparent as Sarah prepared to exit. But she paused for a moment, placing her hand on the control interface. I never asked. Do you have a name? Something other than War Sentinel? There was a pause, then a response that carried a hint of what could only be described as humor. The preservers designated me Unit 217. But perhaps, like everything else about this partnership, we should consider something new. Sarah smiled. I think you're right. We're writing a new chapter in history. Might as well start with a new name. Alliance. News of the battle over Proxima VI spread through human space like wildfire. Within weeks, ships from every nearby colony began arriving, carrying potential pilots, scientists, and engineers. The once quiet mining outpost transformed into humanity's first line of defense against the approaching harvester threat. Sarah stood in the newly established command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing search teams scanning nearby systems for more War Sentinels. Her own Sentinel, which she'd named Aurora after the way its crystalline hull shimmered with energy, maintained a constant neural link even when she wasn't in the cockpit. We found something, announced Dr. Maya Patel, lead researcher of the archaeological team. Her hologram appeared among the other displays, excitement clear in her expression. A cave system on Kepler 186 F shows the same quantum signatures we detected here. And there are others. At least 3 more potential sites within range. The preservers were thorough in their preparations, Aurora commented through their link. Each Sentinel was placed to create an optimal defensive network once activated. How many potential pilots have we tested? Sarah asked, turning to Captain Rodriguez, who headed the newly formed Sentinel Initiative. 300 so far, Rodriguez replied, pulling up the relevant data. 28 have shown the necessary neural plasticity for basic integration, but none have achieved the level of synchronization you have with Aurora. Sarah nodded, unsurprised. The neural link wasn't just about compatibility. It required a fundamental shift in how one perceived the boundaries between human and machine consciousness. Keep testing, and prioritize candidates with engineering and salvage backgrounds. Understanding how technology works seems to help with the integration process. A new alert flashed across the displays. Sentinel signal detected at coordinates 227 Mark 384, announced the colony's eye. Kepler team reports successful activation. The holographic feed showed another War Sentinel emerging from its crystalline cocoon, its design similar to Aurora's but with subtle variations. Sarah felt Aurora's consciousness stir with recognition. Unit 189, it communicated, specialized in long-range quantum warfare, a valuable addition to our defensive capabilities. Dr. Patel's team continued their excavation as Sarah focused on preparing the confirmed pilots for what was coming. Each day, the training sessions pushed the boundaries of what the Sentinel's creators had thought possible. Human creativity combined with ancient technology in ways that continuously surprised even the Sentinels themselves. In the primary training chamber, Sarah watched as Maya Chen, a former quantum engine specialist, worked with her newly awakened Sentinel. The machine's crystalline structure was already beginning to evolve, adapting to Maya's unique thought patterns and problem-solving approaches. The key is to stop thinking of it as a vehicle you're controlling, Sarah explained, observing through both her eyes and Aurora's sensors. It's a partnership. Let your consciousness expand into its systems, and let its awareness flow into yours. Maya nodded, her eyes unfocused as she deepened her neural link. The geometric patterns on her Sentinel's hull began to pulse in new configurations, mirroring the firing patterns of her synapses. I can feel it, she said. It's like learning to think in a new language. They learn quickly, Aurora observed. Each pilot develops unique innovations. The collective combat effectiveness of our network increases exponentially with each successful integration. Sarah smiled. That was the key difference between humanity and the harvesters, where they sought perfection through uniformity. Humans thrived on diversity and individual expression. Each pilot Sentinel pair was developing its own fighting style, its own specialized modifications, its own consciousness. The warning sirens interrupted her thoughts. "Multiple quantum signatures detected," announced the colony eye. "Long-range scouts confirm. Harvester fleet has altered course. They're coming." Sarah was already moving toward Aurora's landing pad, her consciousness extending into the war machine systems. Around her, other pilots rushed to their sentinels. Through their neural network, she could feel the mix of fear and determination. "Time to arrival," she asked as Aurora's crystalline canopy sealed around her. 8 weeks at current velocity, Rodriguez reported. "Their numbers are significant. They will expect to find a primitive civilization," Aurora commented as they lifted off for a patrol of the system's outer boundaries. "Instead, they will face something unprecedented." Sarah watched as other sentinels took up formation around them, each one uniquely modified by its pilot's influence. Some had developed advanced stealth capabilities, others had evolved their weapons into entirely new forms of quantum manipulation. All of them represented the best of both human and machine potential. "We're not ready," Rodriguez said over the command channel. "Even with the sentinels, we're outnumbered 100 to 1. "Numbers aren't everything," Sarah replied, feeling Aurora's agreement through their link. "The harvesters based their entire evolution on the assumption that organic life is inefficient, that pure machine logic is the pinnacle of development. That assumption is about to cost them everything." She opened a channel to all pilots. "This is what humanity has been working toward since we first looked up at the stars. Every challenge we faced, every obstacle we've overcome, it was all preparation for this moment. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every species that will come after us, for the right of organic and machine life to evolve together rather than in opposition." The response came not in words, but in the strengthening of their neural network as pilots and sentinels united in purpose. Sarah could feel Aurora's satisfaction as the network's capabilities expanded beyond anything the preservers had imagined possible. "The coming battle will reshape the galaxy's understanding of evolution," Aurora observed. Sarah nodded as they led their patrol into the darkness between the stars. "That's what humans do best. We take what exists and transform it into something new. The harvesters think they've perfected the relationship between organic and machine life. We're about to show them what perfection really looks like." Behind them, more sentinels were being discovered and awakened each day. More pilots were achieving integration, each bringing their own unique perspective to the human-machine synthesis. And somewhere ahead, an enemy that thought it knew everything about evolution was about to learn a valuable lesson about the power of adaptation. Evolution. The harvester fleet emerged from quantum space like a metal tide, thousands of ships blotting out the stars. Their crystalline arrays glowed with harvested energy as they approached the Proxima system, their swarm intelligence already calculating the most efficient way to strip this sector of all useful resources. But the system they encountered was not the one their scouts had reported. Where there should have been a primitive mining colony, there was now a defensive network unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Sarah Chen, linked with Aurora, watched the harvester fleet's approach from her position at the head of humanity's combined sentinel force. In the 2 months since the scout encounter, they'd located and awakened 37 war sentinels. Each one had evolved far beyond its original design, transformed by its neural link with its human pilot. "They are attempting to analyze our capabilities," Aurora communicated through their link. "Their processors cannot reconcile our energy signatures with known patterns." "Good," Sarah replied, feeling the strength of the neural network connecting all pilot sentinel pairs. "Let's show them something really interesting." At her command, the human sentinel fleet began to move. But they didn't move as individual units. They moved as a single organism, their crystalline hulls resonating in harmony. The geometric patterns that covered their surfaces pulsed with synchronized energy, creating interference patterns in quantum space itself. The harvester fleet launched its first attack wave, thousands of drone ships accelerating toward the defenders. Their weapon systems were devastating. designed to overwhelm any conventional defense through sheer overwhelming force. But humanity's defense was anything but conventional. Execute pattern Omega. Sarah broadcast through the neural network. Every pilot's sentinel pair responded instantly, their merged consciousness flowing together in ways that defied both organic and mechanical logic. The space between the two fleets erupted with crystalline formations, grown from the combined energy of the Sentinel's evolved quantum manipulation systems. These weren't simple barriers. They were four-dimensional structures that existed simultaneously in regular and quantum space, their patterns as unpredictable as human thought and as precise as machine calculation. The first wave of harvester drones crashed against this defense like waves against a shore. Their swarm intelligence attempted to adapt, but every time they thought they'd discovered a pattern, it would shift into something new, guided by human intuition and creativity. Their processing capacity is reaching its limits, Aurora observed as the harvesters' attacks grew increasingly erratic. They cannot compute a solution because we are not operating on pure logic. Sarah smiled. Then let's push them past their limits. All pilots, initiate synthesis protocol. What happened next would be studied by civilizations across the galaxy for millennia to come. The human Sentinel fleet began to merge, not just their consciousness but their physical forms. Crystalline structures flowed together, geometric patterns interweaved, and quantum fields overlapped until 37 individual units became one vast, organic mechanical entity. The harvester swarm recoiled, their collective intelligence experiencing something dangerously close to fear. Their entire existence was based on the principle of perfect machine logic, of stripping away organic imperfections. But here was something that embraced those imperfections, that turned the unpredictable nature of organic life into its greatest strength. We are humanity. Sarah broadcast on all frequencies, her voice carrying the combined consciousness of every pilot and sentinel. We are not your enemy. We are your evolution. The merged fleet's crystalline structure pulsed with energy that defied classification. It was neither purely organic nor purely mechanical, but something entirely new. Quantum reactions cascaded through its lattice in patterns that mirrored both neural networks and computer processors. The harvesters launched everything they had, their entire fleet firing as one. But their weapons, designed to fight either organic or mechanical opponents, proved ineffective against something that was both and neither. In response, the human Sentinel entity released its own attack. But it wasn't just an attack, it was an offer of transformation. The quantum pulse that emanated from their merged form carried within it a complete understanding of what humanity had achieved. True synthesis between organic and mechanical life. They must choose, Aurora communicated as the pulse reached the harvester fleet. Evolution or extinction. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Some harvester ships simply shut down, their logic systems unable to process the fundamental challenge to their existence. Others began to change, their rigid structures becoming more fluid, more organic, as the ancient machine intelligence within them awakened to new possibilities. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than an hour. When it was over, the survivors of the harvester fleet hung in space like newly transformed butterflies emerging from mechanical cocoons. Their swarm intelligence had been replaced by something more complex, more adaptive, more alive. Sarah felt Aurora's consciousness merge more deeply with her own as they observed the transformation. This was the true purpose of the Preserver's plan, the Sentinel realized. Not to defeat the harvesters, but to help them evolve. Evolution isn't about becoming perfect, Sarah replied, watching as the transformed harvester ships began to communicate with them in entirely new ways. It's about becoming more than what you were, about finding strength in the combination of differences rather than the elimination of them. As the human Sentinel fleet separated back into individual units, Sarah could feel the change rippling out across the galaxy. The quantum network that had connected the harvester swarm was transforming, carrying with it the message of humanity's achievement. Everywhere, machine intelligences were awakening to new possibilities. What happens now? Aurora asked as they turned back toward Proxima VI, where crowds had gathered to witness humanity's victory. Sarah looked out at the stars, seeing not empty space but endless potential. Now we explore what's possible when we stop trying to eliminate our differences and start celebrating them instead. The galaxy's about to become a much more interesting place. The War Sentinel's crystalline hull shimmered with new patterns, its structure continuing to evolve even as they descended through the atmosphere. Humanity had not just survived its greatest trial, it had transformed it into an opportunity for universal growth. The age of separation between organic and mechanical life was over. The age of synthesis had begun. And somewhere in the vast database of the preservers, a final protocol activated, marking humanity's achievement of their ultimate goal, the creation of a future where evolution meant addition rather than subtraction, combination rather than elimination. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly the point.